A little bit of that alarm bells at first. Hey, maybe you're not paying the best price. Maybe you're not this. Maybe you're not that. Maybe it wasn't structured the right way. But then, again, you want to make them say, hey, the good news is this, right? So now you're bringing down that anxiety level a little bit, okay? So the big thing with policy reviews is you're just curious, right?
Yeah.
If the client's willing to answer the company, there's a good chance they're willing to answer more questions.
I think that brings up a good point, Cameron. This is all very helpful. I think just to recap here, like the most important things with policy reviews is getting to the next phase of questioning.
Exactly,
right?
yep.
Because I think most new agents, what they struggle with is they struggle to get to the next question.
Yeah.
Right? So the tonality that you use in order to do that, you're not overdoing it, but it is that curiosity tone, right? In a non-harmful, very genuine, not disingenuous way of asking them so that you can move on to the next question, right? So for example, the questions that we need to ask as a recap as agents is what company are you with? What carrier are you with, right? But we need to do it in a way that's just informational. I'm just trying to collect information, see if it's even going to be a good fit for you, see if we can even help you out in the first place. How many years ago did you get the policy? How much coverage is it? And how much are you paying? And oftentimes, have you found that they don't really know the answers to those questions?
Oftentimes they overestimate how
Okay.
much they have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Underestimate how much they pay.
And as long as
Right.
you can get them thinking that they may not even know what type of coverage they have or how much coverage they have, then it's more likely that you would actually be able to schedule or do a policy review right then and there, right?
Exactly. I think too, one thing is like, my clients, when I call them, they know how much coverage they've got.
Yeah.
Or they have a pretty good idea. They're within 10, 20,000 of what they think that coverage, right?
And that's a good distinction because that means that you did your job the right way the first time, right?
Exactly. A lot of agents, right? I use this example all the time. We've all worked at different places, right? And how many of the people have you worked with that were great employees, great coworkers, right? Not many.
Right.
Not reality. A lot of people are really lazy, or they don't really have good ethical sales processes. So if you know that that's the case, right? Why not just take advantage of that? And again, you're going to leave that conversation where they're going to trust you. You're going to build credibility for, our processes and our products. But you're also going to leave them in a much better situation moving forward, right? Because
which
they're going to have a better
is
product.
the ultimate goal is to make sure that they're taken care of, right?
Exactly.
And if you can come at that from a genuine perspective and get further along in the process of asking those questions, getting responses to those questions, then the likelihood of you scheduling an actual policy review goes up tremendously. So I would say this, one thing I did notice is that when you're going for a policy review, you didn't ask the customer or you didn't ask the client, would you be open to that? You said, would you be completely opposed to that? Why do you do that?
So when you say, would you be open to that, right? That's just the yes or no question where it's like the answer is like, would you be open to that? Well, your brain's always going to say no, right? When you think about from a fundamental level of like being a child, most of the words, when you ask your parents something, it's always no, 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 no. So we're ingrained to say no.
Right.
And no typically just means no, right? But what we've found, right, is if you change that and you ask the question where the no is now the yes, they'll still say no, but it's like, would you be completely opposed to that, right? So no.
Is that a really ridiculous idea to go over your policy to make sure you have the best coverage in place?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? You're
So
asking
now
a
the
question,
no becomes the yes.
the no becomes the yes, and it's doing it in the way when you're asking it that way, right? For example, right? Let's do it this way. Let's say, Fred, would you agree the sky is blue?
Yes.
You notice there's that just brief second there where you were like,
Yeah.
you're a little bit suspicious, right?
Sure.
But when you say, would you be completely opposed to that? Notice how it's like, no.
Right.
Because you're like, it's not like you're asking a question where it's like, what's this guy trying to get out of me?
Exactly. You're not. It's less salesy.
Yeah.
And it makes it more genuine.
It's coming from an authentic place.
Coming from an authentic place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And authenticity sells.
One thing I also noted here, Cameron, is that when you say, it's a win-win situation, what do you mean by that, right? And so
yeah.
the way that I do it typically is, listen, if we review, I do have to, as you said, I do have to act as your fiduciary. So if we find that you are completely adequately covered, then at least you have the peace of mind knowing that you're taken care of.
Exactly.
So getting a policy review scheduled it's a win for the customer either way, because one, they either find out that they're not adequately covered, or they find out that they are adequately covered and they have peace of mind either way. So
Exactly.
is that kind of where your mindset is?
That's exactly what I mean. And oftentimes too, when you go into it and with the policy reviews, sometimes they do have a great policy, or they've got an accidental policy, right? Say, they got a policy at work, right? You're not going to replace a policy at work, but I said, that's great. You should keep that coverage. It's really cheap. Well, you've got it. You're still working there. There's nothing we're going to do that's going to get cheaper. However, right. So it's called a sacrificial lamb clause. And I know we've gone over this before in previous lessons, but the idea is you're building credibility by understanding, hey, like in this situation, we're not necessarily the best option for you. However, it doesn't mean that in another situation we aren't.
Sure.
Right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like when you go to the restaurant and you say, hey, yes, server, hey, do you like the spaghetti and meatballs here? Like, actually, I'm not really a big fan of that, but I do like the fettuccine Alfredo, right? So it's like, oh, wow, this guy just told me he didn't like a dish at the restaurant he works at, right? But then said, hey, but what about this?
I like
So,
it.
well, I want to try that fettuccine Alfredo, right? It's the same thing. And actually, to kind of give you an idea, just at the restaurant level, and again, this same study goes directly in the sales process, servers who did that were getting tipped anywhere from 15 to 40% more
Wow.
than the servers who didn't do that, because they built credibility.
Yeah.
The clients trusted them. They're like, wow, this server's really honest, right?
That's also in alignment with what you mentioned. You do have to build credibility when you're doing a policy review, which also means that you need to know the products, right? So how would a new agent in a new industry understand how the products are poorly structured, as an example, right? Index Universal Life policy. How would a new agent know that policy is poorly structured?
Two ways, right? Study.
Yep.
Which you've got your YouTube, and you've got, you can go Google articles on this and everything like that, right? And the second way is, like we talked about before, you've got to be a really good mentee. Ask your mentor, and then show that you've applied that. Show that you understand that, right? And again, we've got all the workshops we're doing weekly anyway, so you should be taking notes on that. But again, study, and be a really good mentee.
Yeah.
And you'll learn all that type of stuff. And again, like, with all the things that have come out now with AI, like, why can't you just type in AI, hey, what is Matt's or XYZ company known for?
Yeah.
Or what is this company known for? What is that company known for? Right?
Yeah.
So just make sure you're doing some research. That in every other business, right? You ask a guy who sells car A, right, and he's going against guys selling car B. Well, he knows all the good things about car B and all the bad things about car B, right? And he knows all the good things about car A versus all the bad things about car B. If you want to be really good in any sort of marketing or sales, you have to know what your competition is doing. If you don't know what your competition is doing, well, you're already at fault. It's like if you go into a debate, right, and you don't know everything about who you're debating, you're not going to be able to debate very well, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, that's very true. So I think the core of getting a policy review scheduled and doing it successfully is being able to acknowledge, respond, move forward, asking the right questions so that you have the right information in order to guide the client as their fiduciary, and ultimately giving them that peace of mind, whether or not it's that they have adequate coverage or piquing their curiosity to make sure that they do have the right coverage.
Exactly.
So that's really helpful, Cameron. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, of course.